Today we are looking at some fascinating insights from Dr. Gauri Mahulikar, who really charts this journey within Indian mythology. We're moving from, well, from abstract words all the way to powerful, everyday symbols.
And our mission today is to really give you a foundational shift in how you see these things. We need to unpack the crucial difference between the common Western idea of myth and this really sophisticated Indian concept of mithya.
They are not the same thing at all.
Not at all. And understanding that difference, it just changes everything.
It really does. I mean, if you pick up any standard Western dictionary, right? Say the Oxford English Dictionary. A myth is usually presented as a traditional story with, superwoman or imaginary people. The subtext is always that a myth is basically fiction. It's a falsehood. It's a fabrication with maybe a tiny grain of truth buried deep inside.
It's something to be dismissed. That's the core of the Western view. A myth is basically an untruth. But Dr. Mahulikar argues that the Indian philosophical tradition uses the word mithya.
And that is not a synonym for unreal or false.
Exactly. It's something different. Mithya refers to an appearance of reality. It's something that exists in this state between, let's say, absolute reality and absolute non-existence.
Okay, so like a reflection in a pool of water. It looks completely real, but if you try to grab it, your hand goes right through. That image is mithya.
That is a perfect analogy. It's a conditional reality, it's temporary, and that is the absolute pivot point for understanding the whole tradition.
So let's ground this a little. We should probably look at the Sanskrit roots. Why this word was chosen instead of just a simple word for a lie.
Yes.
Right.
Like, if we look at the Sanskrit roots that are sort of near the term myth, we find some really critical clues. One of them is the word mitu.
Me too.
Yeah, it means something like alike, or alternatively, even a make-believe thing. For instance, in the old Vedic texts for sacrifices, a simple plow, an everyday tool, is called mithu. And it's likened to a celestial chariot, a ratha.
So it stands in for the chariot. It has the appearance of it for the ritual.
Precisely. It functions as its equivalent, but it's not the real thing. It has that semblance.
Got it. And what about the other root you mentioned?
The second key root is myth, or mython. And that means to unite or to pair with. It's where we get the word mithuna for a pair or a union.
And that idea of union takes us straight into the philosophy, right?
Yeah.
This is where Adi Shankaracharya comes in.
Absolutely. The great philosopher. In his commentary, the Atyasa Basha, he talks about Atyasa, this idea of philosophical superimposition. And he says mithya is exactly that. It's the combining, the superimposition of truth and falsehood together.
Okay. But if the world is a mix of truth and falsehood, doesn't that just mean it's mostly false?
That is the essential question to ask, because we have to distinguish mithya from just absolute nothingness. Shankaracharya's most famous line is Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya.
Brahman, the ultimate reality, is true. The world, Jagat, is mithya.
Right. The world appears to be real. I mean, it functions as real for all of us, right? But that appearance isn't the absolute eternal truth. You can't just dismiss it as a lie because you live in it. It's conditionally true.
That distinction is everything. It's not a fiction, it's a conditional reality. And that elevates the entire idea of a story. It's not a lie, it's a functional expression of something deeper.
Exactly. And this idea, it informs the very soul, the Atman, of all katha, all narrative literature. The sources point out that the impulse for storytelling comes from two eternal human drives.
Which are?
The curiosity to ask and the, let's call it the enthusiasm to tell.
That's a wonderful way to put it. The whole point is the retelling of a truth, not making up a falsehood. Someone needs to know something, and someone else feels compelled to retell that core truth, maybe. Adding some spice, some masala to make it stick.
And that flourish is what makes the story live, but the truth is the purpose.
So if truth is the purpose, let's look at the word for story itself. Katha. What's hidden inside that word?
Well, Dr. Mahulikar's mentor, S.A. Dange, he had this brilliant breakdown of katha. It's not just from the root kath, which means to tell. It's actually made of two distinct syllables.
Okay.
The first is ka. It's an interrogative, like Kim. It means how. And the second syllable, atha, is this archaic past tense form of asa, meaning it was.
So if you put them together,
yeah,
katha literally means how did it take place?
That's it. The story begins not as a statement, but as a question. Someone asks, and the storyteller says, let me tell you how it all went down. It's a dialogue from the very start, a transmission.
Which makes it inherently dynamic.
Yeah.
But we all know that when stories are passed down verbally, they get changed. People add layers. They add that masala.
Oh, the layers are totally unavoidable. And that's how stories become mithya. They take on the appearance of the time and place they're told in. It's like that old game, Kanya. You know it as the telephone game.
It's Chinese whispers, yeah.
The story you start with is completely different by the time it gets to the end of the line. The human element just guarantees the story will evolve.
And we see that in other forms, too, allegories, parables. But Ketha really seems to capture this mechanism where truth gets overlaid by appearance.
It connects the philosophy to the storytelling mechanism itself.
Okay, let's shift from the words to the symbols. We have to talk about one of the most universal stories in all of human history, the Great Flood myth. Specifically, the Manu and the fish story from the Shatapatha Brahmana.
It's such a powerful and simple narrative. The king, Manu, is doing his daily rituals by the river, and this tiny fish just swims into his cupped hands. He saves it, protects it.
And the fish just keeps growing.
It grows incredibly fast. He has to keep moving it to bigger and bigger containers, a vessel, a pool, and finally he releases it into the ocean. Then, when the great deluge comes, the fish returns.
Now a giant.
A giant! And it tells Manu to build a boat, and it pulls him to safety by a rope tied to its horn.
What's so amazing about this is just how global it is. This isn't just an Indian story. You have Noah's Ark, you have Sumerian myths. It really suggests that some massive historical flood event was recorded and passed down orally for centuries.
The parallels in the event are striking. But what's even more revealing is how different cultures explain the cause of the flood. It tells you so much about their worldview.
How so?
Well, in the Semitic religions, like in the Bible, the flood was a punishment. It was a divine decree because of man's wickedness, his corruption.
So it's a moral judgment.
It is. Then you have Sumerian culture, where the reason was, frankly, much stranger. The gods decided to wipe everyone out because humanity was making too much noise.
Too much noise. That's incredible. The gods were just annoyed by all the racket.
It's a really arresting detail, isn't it?
Right.
But in Indian mythology, the framing is completely different. Creation, sarga, and dissolution, pradisarga, they're not moral judgments. They're just two sides of a natural cosmic cycle.
Like life and death on a cosmic scale.
Yes. For new things to be created, old things have to dissolve. A seed has to be buried and die for a new plant to grow. So the whole conversation shifts from divine punishment to just natural cyclical change.
But no matter the cause, wickedness, noise, or just the cycle of things, the one symbol that survives in every version is the boat.
It's the ultimate symbol of support, the savior. It helps mankind cross this immense challenge, and later on in the Bhakti devotional traditions, the name of God itself is often called the boat. The one thing strong enough to carry you across the turbulent ocean of suffering, the samsara.
Wow, that's a powerful connection. It really shows how these ancient physical stories percolate into later spiritual practice. Okay, let's shift again, this time to symbolism in action. How does this philosophy show up in everyday life, starting with geometry? Tell us about the Sri Yantra.
The Sri Yantra, or Sri Chakra, is one of the most potent geometric symbols of the cosmos. You've probably seen it. It's a series of interlocked triangles, 9 of them, all surrounding a single point in the center, the bindu.
And if you make it three-dimensional, it becomes a pyramid, the Mahamuru.
Exactly. And this one symbol, it embodies this huge evolution of spiritual thought. You can see the flow from mantra, the sounds of the Vedas, to Tantra in the Agama texts, and then to the yantra, the line drawing itself, and finally into a mandala.
The universe in a diagram.
The entire cosmos surrounding that central point, the bindu, which is identified with the goddess Maha Tripura Sundari.
I love how that cosmic geometry connects to something so common, so beautiful, as the rangoli or kolam that people draw on their doorsteps. These aren't just decorations.
They are not. They are active spiritual practices with at least 3 philosophical layers. First, it's a direct worship of Bhuvi, the earth, who is seen as Mahalakshmi, Vishnu's wife.
So just the simple act of drawing a rangoli is a daily thank you to the divine ground you stand on.
Absolutely, which is why there's a tradition of asking the earth for forgiveness in the morning for stepping on her. The second layer is Bhutyajna, an offering to other beings. Historically, you'd make the rangoli with rice flour.
So that ants and birds could eat it.
Exactly. It fulfills that duty to give back to the creatures around you. It's an act of charity.
An offering to the smallest beings. What's the third layer?
It functions as a powerful evil repellent. It's a symbol of auspiciousness, meant to keep negative forces out of the home. The sources even say that in the old days, if a holy man saw a house with no rangoli, he might not even ask for alms there.
Why not?
Because he would assume something inauspicious, like death had just happened. The absence of the symbol told a story about the state of that home.
It gives so much depth to something most people just see as art. Okay, to wrap this up, let's look at one final and maybe the most surprising symbol, moksha patam.
This is where ancient philosophy becomes a game that anyone can play, because Moksha Patam is the original spiritual version of the board game Snakes and Ladders.
Wait a minute. The simple game I played as a kid, getting mad at the snakes and cheering for the ladders, that was secretly a map for spiritual liberation.
It was designed as exactly that. The whole concept is philosophical. You are the player moving through life. You need the help of the ladders to escape the poisonous snakes and reach the final goal, the peak of bliss, the plane of Shiva.
So the snakes aren't just random hazards.
Not at all. The snakes are vices. They are the bad feelings that pull you down in life: greed, anger, delusion, moha. They reference the negative qualities you read about in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita.
And the ladders must be the virtues.
The ladders are the good deeds, the supports you need to climb up, things like devotion, bhakti, or true wisdom, jnana. Every time you land on a ladder, you're being rewarded for a virtuous act. Every snake is the consequence of a vice.
So the big takeaway here is that even in daily life, we need these ladders. It could be physical power, intellectual power, spiritual strength. And the game is a constant reminder to choose the right one, the virtuous one, to lift yourself up.
And that really is the encapsulation of our whole deep dive today. Indian mythology, when you see it as mithya, isn't just fiction. It's this complex appearance that holds and transmits a fundamental truth.
And that philosophical depth is encoded everywhere, in complex diagrams like the Sri Yantra, in simple daily practices like Rangoli, and even in a board game like Snakes and Ladders.
It brings to mind Wendy Doniger's idea of myth as a palimpsest, writing on top of writing. You have layers of fabrication on a single grain of truth. But these myths, they also provide basic types, a sort of past which percolates down to the present. They shape us even when we don't know it.
So what does this all mean for you? Well, if a common game like Snakes and Ladders was actually designed as a roadmap for spiritual freedom, what other objects or stories in your own daily life are secretly carrying the weight of ancient philosophy? How many layers of this necessary mithya are hidden just beneath the surface? That's something to think about until our next deep dive.